that are permanent and pensionable. Those are not the jobs that are being offered under this arrangement. The jobs that are being offered here are jobs that will be done for a period of maybe a month, 2 months, maximum 3 months. All the homes we live in were built by people. Are they building now? Are those masons still working there now? Madam Speaker, we must figure out how to create employment and stop deceiving Kenyans and telling them that this thing of housing is going to make them, permanently employed. Madam Speaker, it's also important to note that there's another myth that was peddled during the period of campaigns. And people are told it's bottom up. The people at the bottom of the bracket are going to be brought up. Madam Speaker, now it is clear that Boda Boda and Mama Mboga that were talked about during campaign trail are going to be deducted money for houses that they will probably never own because they can't afford them. Madam Speaker, that is the reality. But Madam Speaker, let's talk about some of these issues that are also constitutional. The issue of housing is actually devolved to the county governments. Fourth schedule is very clear about the responsibilities that are assigned to national government and those that are assigned to the county governments. And I want to confirm that Part 2, subsection 8 of the fourth schedule clearly indicates that housing is actually a function of county government. So, Madam Speaker, as we deal with this, we must know that the national government has only got one role, and that is policy. Not implementation, not in building houses, not in getting land from members, that is not the purpose of the national government. Madam Speaker, on the matter of the levy, because this is one of those things that even when Kenyans did public participation, they said no to. And public participation was actually stopped by the courts of law. And somehow, one of the committees of the House sneaked all over the place and carried out some arrangement of public participation, which was actually illegal, Madam Speaker, if you are to ask me. But then the reality is this, that the levy was already denounced by Kenyans. 90% of Kenyans, during the public participation on the finance bill, said no to the issue of the levy. But now, Madam Speaker, let's talk about that levy. Madam Speaker, pay-as-you-earn income tax are generalized taxes that everyone pays. Madam Speaker, excise duty, VAT, are those taxes that are charged, and only consumers of the goods and services pay that. It's like a toll on the road. It is only the user of the expressway that pays the toll. Now, why is it that you're making every Kenyan pay for houses and not every Kenyan will be a consumer? There are Kenyans, Madam Speaker, who already have mortgages. They are paying mortgages. Civil servants, teachers, public servants that are already actually so high in debt because they are paying for their mortgages. And then you are taking away 1.5% and telling them now you're going to build houses for other people. Madam Speaker, I find this very, very unfair. But Madam Speaker, as I finish, it's important to talk about the regulations because there are regulations that will eventually be made on the basis of this bill, just in case this bill passes, because I personally am opposing it. Just in case the voting bloc will be used to pass this thing in the House, I want to point out some of the dangers that we face. First and foremost, what is the valuation and how will the valuation of the houses be done? We are aware that currently some of the affordable houses are more expensive than commercial houses that are being put up by developers. And Madam Speaker, it's shocking considering the land is given for free by government and the money that is being used is taxpayers' money. How does an investor buy land and then take a loan and build a house and charge less than what is being charged by this affordable housing? It is unfortunate, but this smells of a scam, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the other issue is the repayment period. Because the law here does not talk about the repayment period. When we are making regulations, if this passes, let us be careful to name the repayment period. You cannot leave it open-ended. Because, Madam Speaker, I will tell you what I have noticed here, that there are 3 categories of houses, and they talk about the earnings of the people. And then they are saying that for you to acquire this, you must be able to afford 1/3 of your salary. And there are some people who have been named here that have earned salaries less than 20,000. A person earning 15,000, Madam Speaker, would pay 5,000 a month. A house of 3.5 million, Madam Speaker, would take them 58 years to pay. What repayment period is that? Is that even heavenly possible? Who can start working and be paying for a house for 58 years? So the repayment period must be thought through and discussed and put in the regulations so that we can address it. And finally, Madam Speaker, the Section 31, subsection D talks about application for allocation. And it says that the agency will make decisions on any other information that may be determined. In essence, what we are doing, we are actually inappropriately delegating powers of this House to the Cabinet Secretary. Because the minute you say that they can make regulations further, they can make those decisions later, and you're not asking or compelling within the bill that this be part of the regulations, then it means you're giving them an open check. They can decide tomorrow it is tall people who will get the houses, it is short people who will get the houses, it is people of less than so many kilos. Madam Speaker, we must be very, very specific. But with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I feel that this, Madam Speaker, is a bill that we cannot support, and I oppose.
Before we get to the next speaker, allow me to acknowledge students in the public gallery. Number 1, Diamond Junior School from Starehe constituency, Nairobi, and USIU Africa students from Roysambu, Nairobi County. On your behalf and the House, we welcome them to observe the proceedings of the House. The next chance will go to the member for Sigowet Soin, Honorable Justice Kemei.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity you've given me to contribute to this bill. On the onset, Madam Speaker, I wish to say I support the bill. And I support the bill, Madam Speaker, with 4 reasons. Number 1, Madam Speaker, when we fought for independence in this country, we promised our people that we would give them shelter among other basic requirements. Madam Speaker, this is the first deliberate step that we've taken as a nation to make sure that our people have reasonably good accommodation and providing good shelter for them. Secondly, Madam Speaker, we have a big problem of unemployment in this country. And if you go to construction sites, wherever you see some construction taking place, Madam Speaker, you will see quite a number of Kenyans milling around looking for employment. The housing project, the housing program that will come out of what we're discussing today in Parliament, Madam Speaker, will ensure that the majority of the people who are unemployed in this country get a means of earning an income, even if it is for a short period. And Madam Speaker, we are not talking about laborers alone. We are talking about the professionals in the entire spectrum of employment in this country. We are talking of architects, we are talking of engineers, we are talking of electricians, we are talking of masons, Madam Speaker. This is a very, very good program in which they will be able to get employment. Thirdly, Madam Speaker, I wish to ask the supporters of the bill, and particularly the leader of majority who has brought the bill to Parliament, please make sure that housing is spread all over the country. We must make sure that housing is not in the Nairobi alone, housing is not in the cities alone, housing should be spread to all parts of this country, so that when we look at Kenya, we're looking at a country that looks like the rest of the world. Madam Speaker, finally, if I asked my good friend, Honorable Opiyo Wandayi, to raise his hand, Madam Speaker, it doesn't matter which hand he raises. If he raises the left hand, he has raised his hand. If he raises the right hand, he has raised his hand. So, Honorable Opiyo Wandayi, my good friend, this bill is good, however you look at it. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support.
I see Honorable Opiyo Wandayi looking at you suspiciously. Just to confirm, we were just saying, he was saying something good about you, as a good friend. The next chance will go to the member for Ugenya, Honorable Ochieng.
Madam Speaker, thank you so much for this opportunity. Madam Speaker, all governments over the world get defined by the things that they do during the time they've been given by the citizens to govern. Governments come to power with their own plans. And this government, Madam Speaker, has decided that this is one thing that they will rise or fall with, that they will make sure that they dignify and humanize the way Kenyans live, that they will ensure that Kenyans are able to get houses that are habitable, houses that dignify them, regardless of how much they earn in their place of work, Madam Speaker. And that's why, Madam Speaker, I want to support this bill, Madam Speaker, because affordable housing is a real issue in this country, Madam Speaker. If you go around the country, it's just not in the slums. It's all over the country. The houses people live in, Madam Speaker, you go to some places in Nyanza, some places in the coast, they are not fit for human habitation. And that's why you are saying, Madam Speaker, that government is required by law to ensure that the housing system that's in the country supports dignified lives under Article 25 of the Constitution, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, number two, the reason this housing program is very important is to help stimulate the construction industry in this country, Madam Speaker. We need to ensure that the housing industry is able to support jobs. And before I go far, Madam Speaker, I want to tell my friend, Honorable Mbui, that we are not looking at mijengo jobs. Madam Speaker, the housing industry starts with steel, cement. It goes all the way to timber. It is not mijengo jobs of 2 days, 3 days, Madam Speaker. It is a whole industry, Madam Speaker. And that's what, Madam Speaker, I want to say, that one thing that we as MPs must do is to ensure that this affordable housing fund is able to help us give rise to industries that will come because of the housing sector boom. Madam Speaker, I say this because in the last 8 years, Madam Speaker, we spent $500 billion shillings, Madam Speaker, to build a railway line, but without a single town, without a single industry, without a single city being built on the wake of $500 billion shillings, Madam Speaker. When we built the railway line, Madam Speaker, when we did the railway line, we were importing cement, we even imported sand because we allowed Chinese to bring here prefabricated rolling stock, we allowed Chinese to bring bolts and nuts, we allowed Chinese to bring everything, Madam Speaker. And so I want to request those who will be in charge of implementing this housing fund that, first of all, we must ensure that the procurement is done right. Madam Speaker, personally, I've had an issue with the way we've gone implementing this housing scheme so far, because we want to have your Kali sector benefit from this housing scheme. We want to have our own industries benefit from this scheme, Madam Speaker. And we cannot go to launch a housing scheme in Homa Bay, and we have not prepared the Juakali sector there to prepare the hinges, the doors, the windows, Madam Speaker. You cannot go launching them in Mombasa, and you've not prepared the Juakali there to. Madam Speaker, I support this bill, but I believe that sequencing is going to be key to ensure that the gains that we're going to make in the housing boom goes to the common management, Madam Speaker. Number two, Madam Speaker, the biggest issue today in the country is, do we have a framework for equitable distribution and allocation of this house, Madam Speaker? And I want to plead with the majority leader because this is important to me. The question that's being talked about by Honorable Ndai and Honorable Mbui, we should provide solutions. If you believe that this bill currently does not provide for a way of getting Mamamboga and what about getting houses, let's write it in the law. Let's put a quota for them. And I'm going to convince the majority leader that we must have a quota under Part 4. Let's have a quota for those kind of people, Madam Speaker. Honorable Ichunga, I hope
Honorable Ocheng, Honorable Ndai has a point of order. What is out of order?
Actually, I didn't intend to interrupt my good friend and neighbor, Honorable Ocheng, but I really want to understand whether he's in order for him to direct his address to us, I and Honorable Robert Mbui, and to demand that we provide solutions to the affordable housing crisis. Honorable Speaker, is that conceivable? Is that really conceivable? Honorable Speaker, can you rule him out of order?
Honorable Ocheng, did you address the Honorable
Speaker,
member for Ugenya, for Uguja?
Madam Speaker, that is what a responsible position does. It doesn't just oppose for the sake. A position that is responsible provides solutions. We don't just say this is wrong. You tell us how to do it right. And in this bill, I believe that instead of saying that there's no place for Mamboga and Boda, tell us how to improve it. And I'm going to talk to the majority here, Madam Speaker, that we provide under Part 4 quotas. We must have the quotas for those Bodas. You must have the quotas for the Mambogas. You must have a provision that says that if 100 houses are built in a place, 40 of them will go to Mamamboga or Boda Bodas. We must have that in the law. That's the way to go. You don't just say it's wrong and you keep quiet. You say it's wrong and provide solutions on how this can be done. Now, Speaker, all over the world, we've talked about Singapore, we've talked about Taiwan and Malaysia. These countries grew on the back of housing booms. What's going to mess our housing program, Madam Speaker, for me, is corruption. It's corruption. That's what we're talking about. To ensure that these big projects are going to be corruption-free, Madam Speaker. We can make a good law in this parliament, but if you don't follow up with implementation and ensure that things are done the right way, Madam Speaker, will not go anywhere. And that's why I believe that I will propose an amendment to this bill on a section for procurement. We'll not leave this to procurement laws. We'll make a provision on how we'll procure the materials to be used for this concern, Madam Speaker. We don't want people lying to us that we bought cement at Portland or we bought cement at Savannah and they're importing the cement. We will ensure that timber being used is bought locally. We'll ensure that everything being used in these programs are locally sourced. For me, Madam Speaker, those are things that I expect my colleagues to talk about. How do we ensure that this becomes one of the systems, one of the programs that are able to make sure that we get money through, buy Kenya, build Kenya? Madam Speaker, I will not keep quiet. If we are going to be launching houses and we are importing cement, I will not keep quiet if you are going to be launching houses and we're importing timber. I will not keep quiet if you're going to be launching houses and we're importing steel. All this must be sourced locally for what the President has promised to come to fruition. Let's ensure that for once, Madam Speaker, we do this in a manner that creates jobs systematically. If we source timber locally, the timber industry grows. If you source cement locally, the cement industry grows. If you source steel locally, the steel industry grows. If you source the technology locally, you transfer that and the industries grow, Madam Speaker. That's what I would require to see happening. Madam Speaker, Kenyans are concerned about the possible favoritism in distribution of these houses and allocation. And that's why, Madam Speaker, we must have a proper system that does not involve human intervention. And I'm happy that this president and this government has decided that they're going to digitize things. Majority Leader, I want to request you, let's digitize the allocation of these houses. Let this not be about someone sitting somewhere and saying that so-and-so gets, so-and-so doesn't get. Let's have a way, even if it's a lottery or a coupon system, let's ensure that we avoid things that will make this not work, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the communities that are giving their lands, the communities giving their lands for these projects, Madam Speaker, must also be looked into. If you are building houses in Ugenya, you must tell us that out of these 100 houses, at least you have put aside 20 for people from Ugenya. If you are building houses in Mathare, you must ensure that we are providing 50% of these houses from Mathare people, Madam Speaker. This is a serious project for the President. It must succeed. I don't succeed if there's discipline. If you follow the law to the letter in how we're going to implement this, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I've looked at who are represented in the board that is being proposed, Madam Speaker. And I'm going to again plead to the Majority Leader that in that board, we must have a person from the Juakali sector. In that board. In that board, get a person from from KEPSA, guys who sell these materials for construction. Let's not just have FKE and KOTU. Let's have the Juakali sector who are supposed to benefit from this so that they also represent, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to plead to those doing these projects. We cannot be demolishing good houses to build better houses. We have to negotiate. You can't go to Kakamega, demolish houses that were built 2-3 days ago. Go to Bungoma, demolish houses that are built 2-3. These are people who have not done anything wrong. Talk to them. Agree with them that yes, we want to build a bigger thing here. We can't allow Chinese to be building very serious things in Kileleshwa, interfering with their planning, and then you go to Bungoma, Kakamega, and demolish. Let's do this in a humane manner. Let's make this work for Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker, where Kenyans have concerns, let's address them, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to finish by saying this, that
30 seconds, wind up.
I've heard people talk about people contributing money and they want to get housing. Madam Speaker, there are those who pay their taxes, which we use to pay school fees for our kids. They have no kids. There are those who pay their taxes, which we use to run the health system. They have not become sick. They are not going to hospital, Madam Speaker. So an argument that because you're not going to get a house, you shouldn't be taxed, Madam Speaker, is wrong. There are people who have paid money for school fees and bursaries. They have no kids. So this is social housing. We as a country must carry each other along. We cannot say that because I can't pay for what I will not need. Now, Speaker, our humanity, our ubuntu-ness, our belongingness requires that those who have help those who don't have acquire. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to wish the President well in this particular program and request Parliament that let's keep our eyes open. When our people give money for this project, it must be used for the right reason. Corruption must not be allowed in this project. Madam Speaker, I support and thank you.
Before we give the next person, allow me to interrupt the business of the House to order number 5 on papers. And honorable members, I will give a guide on the tabling of budget policy statement and medium-term debt management strategy for the financial year 2024-2025. Honorable members, this guide relates to the submission of 2024 budget policy statement and 2024 medium-term debt management strategy. As you may be aware, Section 25 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 requires the National Treasury to submit the budget policy statement, BPS, to Parliament by 15th February each year. In this regard, I wish to inform the House that in compliance with the said provisions of law, the Cabinet Secretary of the National Treasury for the National Treasury and Economic Planning has submitted the 2024 budget policy statement, the 2024 medium-term debt management strategy, and the attendant documents. Before permitting the leader of the majority party to lay the BPS and the debt strategy on the table of the House, allow me to guide the House on the next steps to be taken. Honorable members, Standing Orders 232, 5 and 7 provides as follows, and I quote, number 5, upon being laid before the House, the budget policy statement shall stand committed to each departmental committee to consider and make recommendations to the Budget and Appropriation Committee within 7 days of committal. 7, within 14 days, following the tabling of the budget policy statement, the Budget and Appropriation Committee shall table a report in the House for consideration in accordance with the provisions of Section 25(7) of the Public Finance Management Act. It is therefore expected that immediately upon being laid, departmental committees will forthwith commence consideration of the BPS in accordance with their respective mandates and submit their reports to the Budget and Appropriation Committee. Thereafter, the Budget and Appropriation Committee will table its report on the BPS to the House within the set timelines. Honorable members, order, Honorable Opio. Honorable members, I also wish to remind the House that the consideration of the BPS ought to be preceded by consideration of the debt management strategy. Of note, a resolution of the House on the debt management strategy sets the appropriate limit on proposed domestic and foreign borrowing for the next financial year. For clarity, Standing Order 232A, 4 and 6 provides that, 4, within 10 days following the tabling of the debt management strategy, the Public Debt and Privatization Committee shall table a report in the House for consideration. 6, the House shall consider the report of the Public Debt and Privatization Committee on the debt management strategy before considering the report for the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the budget policy statement. I therefore urge the Public Debt and Privatization Committee to expedite consideration of the 2024 debt management strategy in order to clear the way for the consideration of the BPS. I will now allow the leader of the majority party to lay the 2024 budget policy statement and debt management strategy. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, February 15, 2024. 1, the budget policy statement. 2, the 2024 medium-term debt management strategy. 3, the medium-term revenue strategy for the financial year 2024-2025, financial year 2026-2027, and 4, the 2024 budget policy statement, non-financial indicators for the financial year 2024-2025, and the medium term. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Asante. Zamu inayofuata mbunge wa Mombasa, Mheshimiwa Zamzam.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. na mimi niweze kuchangia mjadala wa leo. Mheshimiwa Spika, pesa ambazo zinakusanywa kwa wananchi leo nimepata kuelewa kuwa ni bilioni 63 ambazo zimekusanywa kwa housing levy. Hizi pesa kwanza, mahakama ilivyobandua mambo ya housing levy, hizi pesa zinafaa ziregeshwe kwanza kwa wananchi mpaka vile mahakama itakapoamua. Nafikia wamepeleka rufaa, tuelewe kuwa itakuwa namna gani. Mheshimiwa Spika, nyumba zimejengwa hata Mombasa, tumeona watu wakatolewa katika nyumba zao Pakistan, wakaambiwa nyinyi ambao ni maskini, nyumba zikijengwa hapa mtakuwa nyinyi wa kwanza kupawa hizi nyumba. Mheshimiwa Spika, mpaka leo wakazi wa Pakistan nyumba zimetimia, na mimi nilisikia yule ambaye alikuwa amepewa hii contract akisema kuwa mikono yake imefungwa. Aliomba kabisa, nikisikia na masikio yangu, akawa anaomba, nasema basi tuwape hawa watu waliotoka katika hizi nyumba, tuwape kwanza nafasi ya kuingia. Hawakuweza kuregeshwa pale. Mheshimiwa Spika, nyumba zile zauzwa milioni 7, milioni 5. Mheshimiwa Spika, tusifanye mambo ya danganya toto. Ukaweza kumdanganya mama mboga na yule muuza viazi na yule mwenye kusukuma mkokoteni kuwa hizi nyumba zitakuwa nyumba zao. Mheshimiwa Spika, kumbe tunawahadaa wananchi. Mheshimiwa Spika, mambo ya ujenzi wa nyumba nafikiri yalianza kule mwanzo. Hata wakati wa Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta aliweza kufanya sehemu hapa upande wa Kibera, upande huu mwingine. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nataka nimpongeze Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta kwa sababu watu walioingia pale ni wale watu waliokuwa wametoka katika yale manyumba wakati yanabomolewa, na wakapewa hizo nyumba, wanalipa 2,500, 3,000 mpaka watakapomaliza wachukue zile nyumba. Lakini kwa sasa mambo yanaendelea ni hujuma. Mheshimiwa Spika, nyumba za bomolewa. Kwa mfano juzi wamebomolea watu wa Changamwe zile nyumba, lakini hata ile notice, tunajua pengine nyumba zingine ni za kwao, hata ile notice pia kupatia mwananchi imekuwa ni ngumu. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi ningependa kiongozi wa wengi alioleta mjadala huu atuelezee huyu mama mboga, huyu bodaboda anashinikizwa vipi ndani ya mambo ya housing levy wakati ambapo hayuko kazini. Wale ambao wanafanya kazi ndio ambao wanakatwa hizi pesa. Je, huyu mama mboga ataingizwa vipi pale? Aweze kutuelezea hapa. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni dhahiri kuwa wafanyakazi wa serikali wengi walikuwa wamechukua pesa ili kuweza kuchukua loan kuweza kujenga zile nyumba zao, na wana manyumba yao tayari. Ni dhulma kubwa wao kukatwa sasa tena pesa za housing levy wakati ambapo yale mapeni hawawezi wakatumia wao. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, serikali na mashamba mengi sana. Hata pia wananchi pia wengine maskini wana mashamba yao. Mheshimiwa Spika, kama serikali kweli inataka kujengea mwananchi nyumba, mbona wale ambao wanakaa kwenye nyumba ya matope katika mashamba yao wasiende kule wakawajengea nyumba za kisasa? Wawaambie sasa mtakuwa mwalipa 2,200 mpaka mmalize, lakini muwe katika nyumba ambao ziko thabiti. Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini yale ambayo tunaweza kushuhudia ni uvunjaji wa majumba, kunyang'anya watu mashamba yao, kudhalilisha Wakenya. Wakenya wanalia huku nje. Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi nataka niulize swali moja tu. Kwa sasa Kenya ina deni ya trilioni 11, na tumemsikia juzi Mheshimiwa Rais akisema kuwa madeni yamekuwa mengi, kulipa inakuwa mtihani. Wewe una deni linalokusumbua, kwa nini uchukue pesa tena uende kuweka kwa vitu ambavyo Wakenya hata hawana haja nazo? Wakenya wakipiga kura walitoka ndani ya majumba yao, hawakutoka msituni. Mheshimiwa Spika, haya mapeni ambayo anachukua kujengea majumba, Mheshimiwa Spika, alipe deni tumuelewe, anachukua lakini analipa deni. Mheshimiwa Spika, sio madeni yanazidi kukua, wananchi wanalia, pesa zao zinakatwa. Kwanza ile fuel levy 16%, hiyo ilikuwa inatosha kufanya haya mambo yote, kwa sababu alikuwa ameenda extreme. Mheshimiwa Spika, tusizungushane huku na huku 10 kibaten. Mheshimiwa Spika, Wakenya wamechoka na goji kirba goji. Mheshimiwa Spika, Wakenya wanataka Mheshimiwa Rais aweze kuongeza production. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiweza kuingia kwa mshahara wa wananchi, mwenyewe wana madeni chungu nzima.
Haya, kiongozi wa walio wengi ako na hoja ya nidhamu.
Asante Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, kwa hoja ya nidhamu, najua kuna mswada wa kuongea mambo ambayo kwa lugha ya kimombo tunasema relevance, na nasikia mheshimiwa yale mambo yanayohusu hoja iliyomo mbele yetu. Nimesikia mheshimiwa Zamzam akiongelea fuel levy, na kwa mambo ya manyumba sijui fuel levy ni gani hiyo, labda mheshimiwa Zamzam atuelezee hii fuel levy ni gani. Nimesikia akiongea mambo ya order za koti ambazo ziko changamwe, ambazo hazihusu mswada. Madam Speaker, naomba tu mjulishe mheshimiwa Zamzam.
Patia mheshimiwa Zamzam dakika moja atakujuza.
Mheshimiwa,
umetaja kodi tofauti.
Mheshimiwa kiongozi wa wengi, ikiwa mwalimu alikuwa anafunza darasani na hukumuelewa, hiyo si shauri yangu. Yule mzazi wako aliyokulipia school fees atakuuliza ukifika nyumbani. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, hizi zote ni ushuru zinazokatwa wananchi. Kitu ninachosema, kwa nini uongeze ushuru mwingine katika ushuru ambao ulishakata zamani? Tumia ule ushuru uliokata 16%, fanya haya mazagazaga yote ambayo wataka kufanya, kwa sababu Wakenya tayari washadhulumika katika ile 16%. Kwa nini tuje tuwafinye tena na housing levy, wakati hata bodaboda hajui mambo ya mshahara ni nini, mama mboga hajui mshahara ni kitu gani? Maskini ya Mungu, nimeona wameingia mpaka vibanda, sijui itakuwaje Kenya. Ukitaka serikali ama taifa lako liende kwa uthabiti, Mheshimiwa Spika, punguza ushuru, zidisha mazao. Ukizidisha mazao, Wakenya watakuwa na furaha ya kukatwa ushuru. Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi napenda kuelezea wenzangu mlioko upande ule, najua wengine pengine wana shida zao nyingi, na mpaka wanakuwa kama vile wajua maiti akiwa na inzi umfeta mpaka kaburini. Mimi nataka kuambia, mtaogopa